Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Fridays here. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We are loaded up. Plenty of football to get into as we are 8 days away. Nebraska, Illinois. Again, Hail Varsity on the road in Champaign. Friday shows, Saturday shows. We can't wait to see all the Big Red Faithful invade Champaign-Urbana. We'll see what that number is, but first things first, let's get through the weekend. And you know, this is the last weekend of no college football for you till January of 2022. Let that hit you in the face and sink in. That's good. That's outstanding. One more weekend to get through.
Well, isn't there the 1 week before conference championship week?
Somebody's playing. Army, Navy usually.
Okay, yeah. Well, then, no, you're correct. Yeah.
Because you go from conference title games to
those early crappy bowl games.
You're in Detroit for pre-Christmas, so there we go.
Hey, the Bahamas Bowl. That's what I'm crossing my fingers for Nebraska this year.
Yeah, I'll start rowing now. Bahamas Bowl would be... No, let's aim a little higher. Let's aim towards something for January 1st.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, like...
Worst case scenario, Bahamas Bowl?
That's not a bad worst case scenario.
No.
Like, I'll take it, and I'd rather take it than like Detroit or what are the other terrible
ones? Hi,
ones?
Mr. Schmidt. This is your friendly banker. Would you like to take a small fortune, loan out to travel for the Bahamas Bowl? Well, yes, I would.
Hey, if it's looking like that's a possibility, I'm gonna start hitting that row machine in the weight room just so I'm ready.
Oh, I'd be wheezing in 2 seconds. Parker Gabriel is 20 minutes away from the Lincoln Journal-Star. Does an amazing job covering Nebraska football. Get Parker's thoughts as we are nearing the beginning of the season. Bill Doleman, the pride of Fairbury, his second appearance this week. Billy D is, I think he's still smoldering a little bit from Brett McMurphy. You heard Billy D go off, and we'll talk to the pride of Fairbury about the upcoming season, his outlook, and, yes, the alliance that's back in the news between the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12. We'll hear from Paul Feinbaum as he is obviously throwing water on it. And Derek Peterson, Dr. Petey from HailVarsity.com and magazine, and the Varsity Club podcast. We'll check in with Dr. Petey here at 5:25. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, and can find us if you're outside the Lincoln area, 800-825-5865, wherever you hear us across the state. ESPNLincoln.com is where you stream us. And can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. Follow us and tweet at us if you choose, at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah. Herbal is where you go for that. So we're a little more than a week away for Nebraska and Illinois. And you've had some stories written, and maybe you've taken your temperature check. Some of you are easing in. Some of you are wait and see. Some of you are already fired up. The red face paint is on because you can't wait to check out Nebraska. There's so many optimists. There's a lot of pessimists. There's some gray area in between. And, buzzwords are important. And there's been a lot of buzzwords here through the summer and into fall camp. And Parker was a part of the Journal-Star's preview. And there's a number of buzzwords that have been pretty prominent here. And talent, depth, momentum, pressure, and November. Okay? And to be honest with you, I look at all of these words and I can, where's my radar at? When I think of 2021, if I'm going to attach a word to 2021, what word do I think of when I think of this football team? Is it the talent? Is it the depth? Is it momentum? Is it pressure? Is it November? That's what I'm wondering about. Where are you at, and what word, in a word, what word best describes your feelings or thoughts or kind of defines this team? And I think you could make an argument for, there's a lot of talent on this team. Talent's a word you could circle and say, when I think of 2021, man, it's about all that talent. It's about all that talent on the roster. And, man, Scott Frost has said this is the most talented roster he's had. Totally believe him. And we see the body types. We see the skill guys. We see the offensive line. We see the defensive line. You have a quarterback. You've got a stable of running backs. Man, talent is there. But I think a lot of us are waiting for it to show up consistently on the field. And there's some guys you're going to be leaning on that haven't done it ever at this level because they played at a different level. And I'm thinking of Toure, who could come in and light it up. I actually absolutely think he could be one of the best wideouts in the Big Ten this year. You look at a guy like Gabe Ervin or Marquise Stepp. I mean, Savion Morrison or Ramir Johnson. I mean, there's a number of names you can go through. So talent deserves to be part of the choice. Depth, that will be big time for Nebraska football on both lines of scrimmage, Elijah. We talk about Brant Banks. Is he going to get the nod at left tackle? What's Turner Corcoran's status? Sichterman's won the job. You're going to get hurt in the Big Ten. Somebody is going to go down on the lines of scrimmage at Wisconsin, at Iowa, at Ohio State, at Nebraska. Go through the teams you think. At Minnesota. Look at Minnesota last year, right? I mean, what's the rallying cry up there in Gopherville? It's the fact that they came into Lincoln 35 dudes down and found a way, right? They found a way to go 3-5, but they got a win in Lincoln behind Mo running the football in that offensive line. So depth is gonna be the tale of 2021. But it's not the word I'm attaching to 2021. Momentum is there. It's also a strong argument because you've not seen momentum actually. You've seen momentum towards the end of 18, but you haven't really seen momentum to start a season. Mother Nature gave us the middle finger. You had things in the bag until you didn't against Colorado in 2019. Last year was last year, right? So momentum's there. November, I haven't even gotten to November because I'm so anxious to see how next Saturday plays out. I mean, it is positive, it is negative, and there's no in between. Nebraska can recover if they lose next Saturday. Nebraska can flourish and still stub their toe. Both can happen even if they win. If they win impressively next Saturday. Long season that depends on talent, that depends on depth, and for sure depends on momentum. November, not even thinking about it. I want to see how things go. I want to see how things go into Oklahoma. I want to see how things respond, good, bad, ugly, after Oklahoma. And then we'll talk November because it's going to be like must-see TV one way or the other. How do you close? How do you close Ohio State at Wisconsin, Iowa? I mean, that is your ultimate midterm, first exam, final. Bang, right there. Teams that are competing in the West to win it, and then your college football playoff team to start off that death march. Pressure is the word I'm going with. In 2021, pressure is the buzzword I would attribute to 2021. It's mounting. As in, all right, is this thing going the right direction? More and more question marks. You've got the NCAA. You've got a roster full of talent. You've got a roster and lines of scrimmage with depth. You have a chance to build some momentum going into Oklahoma and maybe build some momentum all the way through the season to get to that November mile marker, barometer, measuring stick. But it is pressure. I am so anxious to see these guys with the red N on their helmet handle the pressure, deal and block the noise, and then just go out and ball. Go out, go ball, and do your thing. Let's see that talent on display when it is a 3rd and 8 and you got to make a play, or it's 3rd and 7 and you got to get off the field. I am so geeked to see Nebraska's head man, his staff rally around him, and his players rally around him, and everybody kind of just walk through, as Coach Held would say, this smoke. Pressure is real, and I'm not saying that the head man's in danger. I don't believe that, nor should he be. But I do believe that, man, a lot of eyeballs are in and on. How are you going to react to the noise? How are you going to react to the moment? How are you going to react to the opportunity? Because they put the work in with the strength and conditioning. They put the work in with talent acquisition. They put the work in with recruiting to their scheme. They put the work in getting bigger bodies that can rock in the Big Ten. How are they going to handle the pressure between the ears? And what does history tell me about Scott Frost? Scott Frost is a guy who came back to Lincoln and joined a team that had already won 2 national championships. Scott Frost is a guy that got the hell kicked out of him every day in practice by a guy named Peter and Wistrom and the rest of the black shirts trying to force him to quit. Scott Frost is a guy that probably wanted to walk away, never, ever, ever did, and then absorbed a lot of arrows because, God forbid, he went 11-2 and finished 6th in the country and didn't win a 3rd national championship. When the going gets tough, dude, and you're about ready to count Scott Frost out, you look at 1997. You look at the Washington game as the springboard. We touched on it just a smidge yesterday. When you're ready to count him out is when he comes through. So am I predicting a double-digit win season? No, because of the schedule. But I am not saying that but in any means. I think he responds. I think he responds to the pressure. I think this team responds to the pressure, and I think they have something to say about the doubt that is leading up into this year when it's all said and done. I think Nebraska will respond because of what history's told me. And history's told me that Scott Frost has responded right when it looks bleak. And I think that's how this season goes. I think they head into Oklahoma 3-0. You'll get my Illinois prediction here next Friday in Champaign. But right now, if I'm predicting, I think you get an 8-win football team. And don't burn the tape. This is ink.
I'll put a note down. The August 20th, hour 1, segment 1. I'll put it down.
Schmidt says they win 8. Someone drug test Schmidt or give him a breathalyzer. No, I think it can happen. There's a lot of things that can go sideways, but it's real easy to say, oh, it's going to be a train wreck. They're about ready to hit an iceberg. I would not bet against the football team or the head coach, even as bleak or crazy as it looks.
And I don't think that's the story of this year. The story to me of this year, the word I'd use...
It's not pressure?
It's not pressure, it's potential. And that's not one of the...
Love the word. No, I like that you added the word. That's fine.
I'm going to add the word because that's what this team is all about. Because how many guys in the Scott Frost tenure have you looked at and said, man, that guy's got potential? And it's time to bring it all together. I mean, the story of last year to me was question marks. You had question marks at wide receiver. When Dedrick Mills went down, you had question marks at running back. It was question marks of who's going to be quarterback, who's going to step up on defense. And some of those question marks were answered. And this season, I think there's a lot less question marks when you surround this team. It's basically who's going to be the guy at running back, and are the guys that we've been hearing about at wide receiver the real deal? Those are the question marks. So it's
unproven talent.
It's unproven talent. It's all about living up to that potential. Can Adrian finally take that step that we've been expecting him to take? Can the offensive line live up to what we were hearing out of fall camp? Can they live up to that potential that we've been hearing of these guys are big and nasty and strong and are going to open some holes? Can the defense live up to the potential that we saw from them last season? Or can they grow into what we expect them to be? It's all about living up to your potential, and that's something that Nebraska has struggled with in the past 3 years under Scott Frost.
There are some ways to ease pressure, right, in this life. Maybe you pour a drink. Maybe you go for a run. Maybe you have a big old steak. I mean, there's outlets, right? And that pressure with this football team, with this quarterback. It's a run game. It's an offensive line. It's physical football. It's okay to win games defensively. You want to talk about going with what you might be strongest at? It's okay to lean on a defense that's going to smother people in the run game. Go ahead and lean on it, man. Get your special teams up to speed for the love of God. Let them be a difference maker, not a debilitator. And let your defense go smoke some people, because they are your strength going into 2021, while everybody else catches up, while your new guys get eased in, while those skill guys get adapted to Big Ten play. Find your tight ends. Get your quarterback some help around him, a la 2018. Lean on that D. I like that. Pressure or potential. 2 words. As we look for a word that makes you think most about this upcoming 2021 season. Parker Gabriel's coming up. Derek Peterson on the way. The Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman next hour. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio listen?
On Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. You can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. We'll get to some emails here coming up, and good to have you along on a Friday. Weekend edition also back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Reminder to buckle up. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce risk of fatal injury by up to 60%. Your best defense in any crash, buckling up. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Let's talk to Parker Gabriel, Lincoln Journal star, Husker Extra PGs, where you find him on Twitter. Parker, how's your Friday, man? What's up?
Oh, it's going pretty well. It's a little hot out there, but other than that, it's all good. How about you?
I'm good, man. I'm smiling because this is our last weekend of no football till January.
That's right.
So how are you spending this weekend? Are you going to relax, a little golf, a little grilling, or are you cranking through all 2020 film of Nebraska football?
Yeah, it might be on the grill a little bit, but there's a substantial amount of work to do too when you write about Nebraska football, and there's a game a week away. So it'll be split between that. Maybe get out and enjoy the outdoors a little bit one of the days, and then then it's into the long stretch here of 8 straight game weeks before bye week.
No, that'll be awesome. Parker, I want to go over the week, not day by day, mind you, but just the impromptu presser with Trev and Coach Frost and the NCAA. And as you size things up, what were some impressions you have? I want to start with that. We'll get to football. We'll get to preview. But just overall, what were your takeaways from Wednesday? And, how do you think it could affect the team here in a week?
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind when you're talking about situations like this is that even though this sort of came into the public realm today, it came into public knowledge, or this week, became public knowledge this week, it's been known in the building for some amount of time. I don't know exactly how long, but weeks or months. And so at least a month. Trev Albert said it predated his arrival as the athletic director. So it's not like the NCAA investigators are combing through practice this week and pulling kids out of meetings to interview them and stuff like that. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the interview stuff, to the extent that players were involved in that's already been done. So it became news this week, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's not to say that distraction is impossible, but I think it's more likely to affect the day-to-day workings of somebody like Scott Frost or Trev Alberts at this point, rather than the players themselves. And I don't know what sort of burden the investigation is on coaches and administrators at this point either. So It's not I'm not trying to sweep it under the rug. I'm not trying to say that it was obviously big news and it's a sizable development. But if you're talking about like how does it affect the players on August 20th and beyond, I'm not sure that it changes their day-to-day much at this point. Like, I think the first day of school on Monday probably is like a bigger mark, coming up for all those guys than the fact that this is sort of going on or has been going on for the past while.
Parker, give me a guy on offense that will have a breakout season. Give me one player on defense that has a breakout season.
Well, I think on offense, you could pick a couple of those running backs. I really think that Samari Toure is going to have a big year. I mean, it's maybe hard to peg him as a breakout player since this is his first year at Nebraska, but I think people are going to get to know him pretty quick for a couple of reasons. He's been around the block. He had 1,500 yards receiving at Montana. Granted, it's a different level, but still, I mean, you don't just walk into that level and catch 85 passes in a season. And then he's also playing in the slot, which is that's a highlight position in this offense. And so I think he's going to be targeted a lot. I think he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And that position's put up historically, substantial numbers in this offense. Defensively, there's a bunch of candidates. I think, Nick Henrich has an opportunity to really sort of break out this year in the middle of Nebraska's defense. It's imperative that he stays on the field and keeps himself healthy, obviously, but the coaching staff has said pretty flatly, if he's healthy and playing, he's going to be really productive. Eric Chinander said that a couple of weeks ago, so I buy that. He's a prototype for what you want in the middle of your defense, and like Eric Chinander said, if he's on the field, I think he's going to make plays.
Parker Gabriel's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Parker, not a guy who's a really breakout candidate. We kind of know how he's going to be an integral part of the offense. But that's Travis Vokalek. We saw on Twitter last night he posted a photo with a caption in Latin that said, a sound mind in a sound body. Is that letting us Husker fans know that he is going to be back and ready to go for Illinois? Do we know if he's back at practice yet?
Well, that's the optimistic way of looking at it. I don't know categorically what his activity level is like right now. Be nice if those photos they put up there were time-stamped about when they were taken. It could have been from the first day of camp or it could have been from yesterday. So time will tell. Although, the latest update from Matt Lubick on Wednesday in the midst of all the other stuff that was happening on Wednesday was he said that the tight end room would continue to get healthier. And he said, we're going to be healthy there by week 1. Now, I don't want to necessarily take that as the gospel. That means, he basically said Travis Vokalek's going to play and be healthy and all that. I mean, we'll see. But certainly it seems like if you sort of put together all the pieces, it certainly seems like he's less – it's trending more toward, the short end of time missed rather than being something more extensive.
Parker Gabriel's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Lincoln Journal-Star at Husker Extra PG. Parker, I really enjoy the Journal-Star's preview and the buzzword section I was looking at, and you've got talent and depth and momentum and pressure in November. What of those words, or do you have your own word? What word are you attaching most, or do you circle for 2021? What word do you think of for 2021?
Yeah, those were my 5, so I'll take credit or blame or whatever for those. I think it's hard not to attach pressure to this week. I mean, this coming week in the Illinois game. But if you withstand that pressure and beat Illinois, it could turn to momentum relatively quickly, So I think, honestly, it seemed like a productive camp. We don't obviously see very much, but it was quiet by and large. They're mostly healthy by and large. We talked a little bit about the injuries at tight end, but that all is great, and that could all seem like momentum. Momentum's really about Saturdays in the fall. So I think it's going to feel more like pressure. But if they get a win, it could turn to momentum quick. And then, November will be here soon enough. We can cross that bridge when we get there.
You're right on, man. I mean, I think November is going to be incredible, but let's eat what's on our plate first, right? Let's see what happens in Champaign, and I think you put it perfectly. That pressure can turn to momentum big time. Injuries and depth are so key. You're wearing the headset. Parker Gabriel's wearing the headset, and Adrian's got to come out and put a drive together. Who are you going with as the backup?
Yeah, well, I've seen very little of the two other guys, so I'd be pretty ill-equipped to make that decision, Schmitty. But I think
you'd hand it off.
I punt. So yeah, if it's third and long, we'll maybe just
we're gonna
we'll screen draw and then try to pin him deep. But no, I think to me, it seems the last few days, they haven't named a number two, but the last few days, Scott Frost has really spoken pretty highly of Logan Smothers, and I don't think that's by accident. It's just a difference at this point of, it might depend on what the situation is a little bit, but at this point, if you were up by 6 and there's 5 minutes left in the game and you got to preserve a win, I think I just think Logan Smothers is a little bit further along in operating the offense, being comfortable in the offense. And Frost said as much last night on the radio. And they like the progress he's made with his mechanics. I don't know that he's ever going to be like the strongest arm guy. I mean, Heinrich Harburg has a world of talent and arm talent that is just a little bit different probably than Logan Smothers. But they like the way Smothers operates the run game. They like the way he makes decisions. They like the way he operates the offense. And, in a backup situation, that's a big part of the challenge, is having a guy that can have you in the right plays all the time, do the right thing all the time, and to use the old axiom that's probably overused, but sort of manage the game.
Yeah, the backup quarterback spot is a position where I really see that it's necessary for Nebraska to get up in some of their early games. I look at Fordham and Buffalo, where you can get up and get the backups a quarter of action. Do you see that happening this year? It's been a while since we've gotten a chance to see the backups get meaningful snaps in a game where Nebraska's up 35,
Yeah. I mean, I think Fordham for sure. That's why you play a game like that. And so if you don't get that opportunity, you've really squandered something. I mean, obviously, the first goal is to win all of those types of games. And you see teams, not typically a school like Fordham, but you see teams lose by games, with some frequency. So you don't want that, obviously. But if you get a chance to get up big, that's one of the biggest. It matters for everybody. It matters for a young linebacker that maybe gets some time, or a freshman corner, Marquise Buford or Malik Williams or whoever it is. And it definitely matters at quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, I think I think in the ideal world, you get Logan Smothers and Heinrich Harburg some time late in games, whether it's, sometime in the first 3 weeks or somewhere else. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely the goal to get those guys some live reps in as low pressure an environment as possible this fall.
Parker, I need to know your college football playoff 4. Bigger picture here. Any new name, or is it the same 4 dance partners?
Yeah, it's going to be tough for it to not be the 4. I mean, I think in terms of the usual suspects, I think I'm very interested. I think it's a big year for Oklahoma. Some people have them pegged as the number 1 team, number 2 team. I think they were number 2 in the AP poll at the beginning of the week, and so that's a group that now they don't have a cakewalk necessarily. It'd be very interesting if Iowa State could really, truly push them in the Big 12. That would be fun. And I think Georgia. We're not breaking a lot of new ground here, but Georgia and Texas A&M, they're going to have the opportunities in front of them. Whether A&M is playing Alabama, Georgia opens the season with Clemson, and then potentially gets Alabama in a title game type scenario. So there's a lot of there's some potential, but it's obviously incumbent on those teams to take advantage of those opportunities. And then I think that the Big Ten's sort of in an interesting spot. I mean, I don't doubt Ohio State keeping it rolling, but you want to see what the quarterback play looks like. You want to see what that defense looks like before you just anoint them as one of the top four. And you just sort of wonder if there's another team in the Big Ten, whether it's Penn State or Wisconsin or somebody else that could finally push Ohio State. But I think you want to see that before you believe it at this point with how dominant the Buckeyes have been in this league.
Parker, awesome to chat. We'll get caught up again. Thanks for the time, man.
Yep, have a great weekend, guys.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Great to be with you on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Parker Gabriel, Lincoln Journal-Star. Last segment. Get that checked out on demand, ESPNLincoln.com or ESPN Lincoln Twitter feed. That's posted for you to hear. Some good thoughts by Parker. Bill Doleman on the way. And a lot of emails to get to. We'll hit that in a moment. Can keep your emails coming, Chris@HailVarsity.com, or dial us up 466-3776, 800-825-5865. 2021 in a word. What is that word? Elijah said potential, and he's right on. I think pressure, and I think Parker nailed it with pressure turning into momentum. I think that happens for the first time in the Frost era. So let's get into what could maybe derail some of that pressure. That's wins. That's finding a run game. That's being able to exploit some of your matchup advantages with a guy like Toure in the slot, or finding a hot running back to get downhill, to play some bully ball on that line of scrimmage. Quarterback, though, is where we're going to go. And Elijah, I think you've got a couple of good candidates that you just haven't seen a ton from other than the spring game. And you've got Logan Smothers that, when I think of him, and we're talking backup quarterback, and historically speaking, God forbid, you've had just a guy that leaves it out there for his teammates in Adrian Martinez and is super uber talented, but he's been dinged, right? He's been dinged. And if there's a situation where he's got to come out, where do you go? And you've got some unproven. I mean, Masker's obviously an option as well. But Logan Smothers, to me, just seems like one of those just dudes that you see on highlight films, and you see ripping it up in Alabama, a guy that plays not hurt, like injured, like let's go to the emergency room injured, right? Because there's a bone sticking out here and he's going to rub some dirt on it. But situationally, listen, I think there's things that he can do in this offense with his athleticism in the ground part of things, where you've seen Nebraska use their quarterback a lot on the ground. And I think Smothers is a dude with his speed and some shake that can be pretty dynamic in the zone read game. And I'm not saying he's a nightmare throwing the ball. No, I think he can throw the football fine, and it's been more refined with the mechanics. But do we go back to an offense that can't open things up and go deep if he's in at quarterback throwing the football? I don't know.
Well, he reminds me of that same mold of quarterback that Luke McCaffrey was, where
it's an athlete playing quarterback.
Yeah, at the end of the day, how he throws the ball is not the strength of his game. And obviously, we haven't seen him in any game reps. I'm taking it from what I've seen in the spring game and what I've heard out of practice. But it does not sound like he's going to be the type of guy who's going to run the same offense that Adrian Martinez runs. So I worry about the backup quarterback a lot. I mean, how many times have we had a backup starting a game for Nebraska in the past 3 years?
A lot, and it's not gone well.
And it's never, ever gone well, because really Adrian Martinez, this offense has been tailored to him and his strong suit, or his strengths, what he does well. And I don't think that Smothers does the same things well. So we saw how
they can both run well.
We saw how limited that offense was whenever Luke McCaffrey was at the helm last year. He did some good things. Yes, he could get the offense moving. Really struggled in the red zone. Really struggled whenever Nebraska was in third and more than 5. Luke McCaffrey really struggled. So I do worry about what happens whenever Adrian Martinez takes a knock whenever he takes a quarterback draw and needs to miss even just one drive. It could come at a crucial time because it's the Big Ten. Injuries are going to happen, and as we've seen under Scott Frost, injuries at the quarterback position are going to happen as well. I think you want Adrian to start all 12 games. I think there's a lot of potential. That's why the running back is so important to take a load off of what Adrian's got to do running the ball. Because let's be honest with ourselves, Adrian is still going to be running the football this year. It's still a very crucial part of this offense. So the question is can Smothers come in and do enough to keep the Ferrari going, I guess?
Not wreck it. Don't scrape it. Don't curb it, right? Can you keep it between the white lines? In a guy like Logan Smothers, yeah, you turn your offense into what he does well because you practiced a lot. You can do some zone read. You can do some quarterback run. You can do some play action and give him some throws that he's good at and he can make, and you can find a way offensively, and then, oh yeah, by the way, lean on your defense. Let's talk Harburg for a second. And what Scott Frost said last night on his radio show is, it's a consistency thing, and I'm paraphrasing. But as he put it, when Harburg, looks good, or when Harburg is good, he looks great because you've got the physical tools. I think you got something for down the road. And we also use the term gamer. The completion percentage for Harburg wasn't the prettiest, but man, did he make some third down plays? Yeah. And again, in the spring game, did he rally the squad to come from behind and make a last-second touchdown for the win? Yeah. So while maybe first and second down throws weren't great, or there was some inconsistency there, maybe his numbers were 9 of 21 or 9 of 24, he hit some big ones, and he hit some big ones on third down. And
not all the incompletions were his fault either. I remember that one of going right off Xavier Bett's face mask.
Yeah, you don't want to dwell on no number two, all right? But I'm saying, listen, depth is key. Your biggest key is the quarterback. What's the depth look like? And I think Parker nailed it based on him reading the lines, and that is you might see a Smothers enter in action if and when he's called to do so because of potential injury. So email to get to. This is from our friend Greg in Michigan, Chris at HailVarsity.com. Do you think NU keeps getting cheap shotted by national media because Frost is really cocky? Doesn't seem like NU under Riley would be getting the same. I think this, Greg, thanks for emailing, thanks for listening, thanks for podcasting Hail Varsity Radio. I think there's a lot of national media that was all on the Frost bandwagon when he's 13-0. There's a lot of national media that went, wow, Scott Frost in Central Florida just took down Auburn, that, by the way, beat convincingly Alabama and Georgia, the two teams playing for the national championship in 2017. I thought there were hot takes and bold predictions, and one of them raising both hands that I thought Nebraska would be playing in a conference title game. I thought they'd be where they needed to be in year 3. Wrong. Last year was weird anyway. So I just think there's a lot of egg on national media face, and it's easy to tear down once they've built up. We'll wind down hour 1 next.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Will COVID has thrown their hat into the ring. Not here. Auburn football coach Brian Harson's tested positive for COVID. Got a picture of him at SEC Media Days, and he's got the proverbial Auburn tie. Orange, navy, gray. Good-looking suit. So Auburn had a COVID outbreak this week, and some players are out because of testing, contact tracing. Auburn, one of the lowest vaccination rates in the SEC, although the school's medical staff does endorse vaccines. You pray that you don't see this anymore. Don't know that that's going to be a reality, but the responses to this story, it's pure gold when you got a gif of Nick Saban sitting down on a couch with all his rings on, talking to somebody like he's recruiting, like I told you so. So there you are. Auburn, we'll see if they get to rock and roll here in 2 weeks for week 1. But football's upon us. Good stuff. And I'm going to stick with pressure. You're going to stay with potential. And I'm going to put Bill Doleman on the clock with predictions. Bill Doleman's going to get the crystal ball out. Magic 8 ball. Bill doesn't own a Ouija board. And we're going to get his take on the season. He'd always have some sort of insane score for all the years he's been coming on with his prediction. Nebraska always covers. Bill Doleman's prediction, 207-3 or whatever it is. But, man. So, buzz. Is the old buzzometer creeping up amongst your buddies?
Amongst my buddies?
Yeah.
Depends which ones you talk to. I think my buddies are a pretty good, pretty good barometer, pretty good representation of how the general fan populace feels as a whole. Where I have a few that are like fully drinking the Kool-Aid, like I think we give Oklahoma a run for their money this year, and I got other ones who are going like we'll be lucky to get 1 and 3 at a non-conference. So I think there's a wide range. A lot of people are scared of Buffalo. A lot of people are scared of Illinois. A lot of people see Fordham as the only real like that should be a W. And I mean,
Fordham's the only yes.
Fordham's the only one I'm comfortable putting a W down in pin.
Okay, really? Well, that's fair.
But Buffalo, I'm close. Buffalo's like one of those pins that like has the eraser on the end. You don't tell anyone around, but you really got to shake it, and it never really comes out that great.
Gotcha.
Like I'm pretty close. In Illinois, I'm comfortable penciling in a W.
Yeah, I'm ready to go ink. A week out, no, God forbid, there's a rash of things that happen Monday and beyond. Yeah. As I talk to you Friday, I feel good about a week from Saturday. Absolutely.
I feel good. I don't feel great. That's where I'm at. I mean, I have some friends who feel like they're very worried about the game, so I'm not in that boat yet. And I do think there are fans that are in all places as we are 8 days away.
You know what you're worried about? You're not even really that worried about Illinois. You're worried about Nebraska. You're worried about Nebrasking themselves. That's what you're worried about.
I'm worried about 4 turnovers.
Well, yes.
That's how it's gone against Illinois.
That is absolutely it. You're not really worried about the pig farmer. You're worried about holding on to the ball and getting off the field. All right, hour 2 coming up.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Hour 2, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Good stuff from Parker Gabriel. Dr. Petey, Derek Peterson, is on the way. We say hi to the Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports. Second appearance this week. Bill Doleman with us, at Bill Doleman on Twitter. Billy D, how's your Friday, man?
Well, it's going okay. I've been scouring the internet trying to get updates on the breaking scandal from, Tuesday or Wednesday, and really not finding much of anything on a story that I still continue to believe is not much of anything.
Well, that's it. I mean, we're getting closer to game mode, Bill, and we are going to get some of your predictions. You can be as conservative as you like, or you can be as bold.
Dead on accurate as I always am.
Dead on accurate as he always is. But we were talking about different buzzwords, depth and momentum and pressure and talent. November, Elijah's word potential was there. Vic in your neck of the woods, Vic from Denver, said polished is the word he wants to attribute to 2021. What's the word you have in mind?
Regarding Nebraska football?
Yes. What word do they need to be as we we look back in December.
Okay. So you're not looking for the buzzword of fall camp in terms of what everybody says about their teams this time of year when everybody is unbeaten and everybody's optimistic. You're wanting what is that buzzword going to be at the end of the year?
Yes.
Better.
Okay.
I'd be happy with better. I'd be happy with fewer mistakes. I'd be happy with a lot of different things, but I think better is what I want out of them, and that encompasses a lot of things.
It does. Bill Doleman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports. Bill, let's get into how they can be better, right? We talk about sloppiness, and we'll get a little bit further breakdown from you next Friday in Champaign. But, what are you worried about? What are you worried about a week from tomorrow?
So sloppiness. That's been my problem really for the past few years. It just continues to amaze me, and I think this kind of goes back to even the Pelini era of how often Nebraska puts the football on the carpet. That amazes me. The number of turnovers or near turnovers, whether it's fumbling the football or throwing ill-advised passes into coverage, I don't understand how hard of a problem consistently Nebraska has in holding on to the football. That mystifies me, and it's been a problem for years now, and it's been a killer in so many ways, in so many drives. Second to that is penalties. Now, I'm not going to get into leaving a conference, joining a conference, having to pay your dues, wanting to actually play football, and having penalties called because of that. And what was it? I don't remember the stat because it was like a year ago. Nebraska's opponents had gone like 15 games or something like that without a holding penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Nebraska couldn't go 15 plays without having a holding penalty. There's just some really bizarre stuff that is beyond conspiracy, right? But nevertheless, Nebraska has had a penchant for penalties at some really bad times. And I think part of that, though, goes along with not being necessarily in condition. And maybe that goes with holding on to the football too. You're tired. You don't make smart plays. You make dumb mistakes. You're out of shape, and you end up trying to do whatever you can to make a block, and you end up grabbing on. So some of that is self-inflicted. So I'm hoping that Zach Duvall and all those guys, that they are in much better condition when it comes time to you're sharper both physically and mentally as the game goes on. I'm always been I'm critical of the holding up four fingers when it comes to the fourth quarter. But you better be polished and ready to play in the first quarter, because it ain't going to matter in the fourth quarter if you've been sloppy for the first three, right? Mm-hmm. So Nebraska's got to be on its game mentally, physically, emotionally, in terms of discipline from the first snap of every game to the last snap of every game. But if it's sloppy early, it's going to be sloppy late, and you're going to have bad penalties that are going to cost you games. I go back, the Colorado game, what was it, Scott's first year out here, and they ended up getting beat. What was that, 2019 or something like that? And, they come out and they're all fired up and jacked up, and they had Colorado like first and 15, second and 30, third down and 40. And then there's like a celebration, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. They kept the drive alive, and they went down and scored. And all of a sudden the game changed completely. You got to play within a certain amount of discipline, or a lot of discipline, so you're not sloppy. That, to me, is the most important thing of all.
Bill Doleman's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Bill, when we talk to you on Fridays before games, you're usually the eternal optimist with your score predictions as we look at the big games. And I just want you to look at this season as a whole, 8 days out. Are you feeling more optimistic or pessimistic about what the Huskers can do in 2021?
I look at the schedule, and I don't really see any reason why they can't go unbeaten and pick up a couple of more wins along the way. So I could see this team easily going 15-0. That's just the way I see it. But that's me. I know a lot of people might be down on the Huskers or something, but that's just the way I see it objectively as a journalist.
No, I get it. 15-0. Bill Doleman. You heard it here first and last. That the Big Red will go unbeaten and on their way to crash the college football playoff. I love it. What concerns do you have here aside from Illinois? We talked about sloppiness, but when you look at their schedule, are you thinking there's going to be a lot of coin flips? Do you put a category together? Do you have wins, toss-ups, and losses? I mean, do you kind of give yourself three columns when you put your garage schedule up, and then you either go ink? I don't think you're a pencil guy. You just go straight for the ink. What are some of those coin flips? Give me one or two that you're like, if it goes sideways, that could be pretty detrimental.
Well, I think if the Illinois game goes sideways, I think that's going to, be tough. And then you're looking at 14-1. And I don't think that would be necessarily acceptable. You've got, then you got to bounce back and you got the rivalry game with Fordham and Ben Scully U. And, anytime you have Nebraska and Fordham beat on the football field, anything can happen. You know that. You've got the Bills coming to, town on the 11th. Now they don't have Lance Leipold there anymore, so I think they're going to be in a rebuilding mode with that program. They lost their running back that averaged 300 yards a game a year ago. You've got a bye week on the 18th of September. Go to Michigan State for a road game. That's a critical game right there. You've got two early conference games in August 28th and September 25th, and that's where your momentum is going to be gained. Is winning in Champaign, and then you go into Michigan State and you're 4-0 and you win on the road in East Lansing. That sets your stage for the rest of your conference season. But if things don't go well in Champaign, and you give that kind of some of those road games that we've seen over the years, where Nebraska just seems to play to the crowd, which is negligible crowds, like at Purdue. Every time you go to Purdue, I think to me that's the toughest place to play because there's nobody there and nobody cares, right? Those are the toughest games. And I don't know what Illinois is going to be like with Brett Bielema there. There may be a great atmosphere, there may be none. But Nebraska has to make sure that it's on top of its game and not play somebody else's. But I think the Michigan State game and the Illinois game, to me, are vitally important in terms of the direction of the conference season and how everything's going to go. And if you don't come out of September with an unbeaten record, maybe 4-1, maybe I'll let one slide. Then I think you're probably in a lot of trouble. If you're under 500, yikes.
Mm-hmm. No,
but that's just somebody down the road. That's not the eternal optimist that I am speaking.
4-1, I think out of September would be pretty big time. Bill, a thought with Nebraska and specifically adversity. And you covered Scott. Scott. You were here with him and the team in '96, and also you saw kind of the emergence in '97. And how he dealt with the ups and downs, and he still had a really good junior season. But you were also there, like during practice, when it was ritualistic hazing time in the form of full contact football, where that defense would try and make him rethink football. And tell me about Coach Frost, as you know him, how he responds literally with the back against the wall, because we've got this pressure, this noise, this build-up, the question marks, the direction of the program, the Dennis Dodds of the world and the hot seat rating, all of that. As you look at him now, years later, how do you think he responds and has his team ready to respond with this build-up for year 4?
Look, the thing that struck me as I think back to those years is the thing that he had was the 100% backing and belief of his coaching staff. Not just Tom, but I mean, I can remember, Milt Tenniper was such a great, loving guy. everybody loved Milt. Everybody loved Dan. And, Ron and Turner and that staff was fully behind him, and going into what was, a tough season in 96 and 97 and all of that. So to a certain extent, who's behind Scott now as a coach? Well, you'd hope Trev and the administration, the athletic department, the fans, and all that. But I think through the, whatever controversies there were with Scott from, going to Stanford and, I'm not going to get into everything, okay? But all that led up to 96 and 97, I think Scott knew no matter what criticism there was outside of the program, that his coaches had his back and not just supporting him, but loved him. And that, to me, I think was critical. And, I go back, Scott had the great game against Tennessee and, other good, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but the game that really stands out for me in Scott's career was Washington in Seattle. I mean, we won that game like 27-14 or something, and that game could have been 77-14. I mean, Scott just rolled through them. The whole team was on it, and they just kicked their ass. And I remember after the scene in the locker room after the game, just the genuine joy that, coaches had for him, giving him a hug and because there was so much on him in that game. And I've said this before. I remember Tony Barnhart on game day saying something like, "At a big game, and I got to trust Scott Frost? I don't think so." And they went out there and just kicked their ass, like I said. And they weren't supposed to. But that game was really on Scott as a quarterback and as the leader of the Nebraska football program, and the joy and the love they had for him. I think he felt that, and especially after that game going forward, and look what happened. Now, Scott needs to impart that with his staff on his players, that he has their back and that there's a genuine, emotion and support and feeling within that program. And maybe that, I heard this is interview the other day that the Unity Council is back. Well, I hope it is. And I hope that maybe that's where Jay and Jason, Foreman and Peter have a sense of what that Unity Council means for the entire program and the staff and the players, and get behind each other and accountability and a genuine concern, for each other. So, those are the kind of things that stand out to me in terms of supporting Scott and supporting players, is that it's genuine. And if it's genuine, that that'll result in good things on Saturdays.
Bill, I have just 1 minute, but this alliance that we'll know more about next week, what would you do for the football side in a minute with the alliance? How would you break it down? It's too short a time, but can you give me a quick answer?
With the ACC and the Pac-12?
And the Big Ten.
And the Big Ten. I first thing I would do is not do anything out of haste. I'd sit back and go, okay, what are we going to do here? And why are we doing it? All right? And how can we evolve with the SEC? Because we are going to move into an era of a 64-team NCAA, or not even NCAA, football league. Let's just get together and let's think this thing through before we make any rash decisions. That's the most important thing. Get together and then don't do anything. All right?
Makes
We'll
sense.
do something later. But right now, everything is just knee-jerk reaction.
Sure.
So stay away from your knees.
No, and knees at my age, be careful. Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, and follow him on Twitter at Bill Doleman, NBC Sports. Billy D, have a great weekend. Enjoy Denver. Enjoy Colorado. We will talk to you from Champaign next Friday with the Hail Varsity Roadshow.
And I'll have a complete breakdown of the game next week. There's no question about it. That's all I'll be doing.
I can't wait for your take and your prediction for sure. Bill, be good, brother. Thanks so much.
All right, go Big Red.
There he is, Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, NBC Sports. Dr. Petey, Derek Peterson's on the way. We'll take your calls as well with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
back in. It's Hail Varsity Radio presented by the Nebraska Lottery, taking you through a Friday. I was excited to sit down with an author for Hail Varsity Magazine, now working out in Chicago. It's Derek Peterson. Find him on Twitter at Dr. PDHV. And Derek, how I want to start this off is we're 8 days away from kickoff, Nebraska against Illinois. First things first, are you making the trip from Chicago down to Champaign? And then also just rate your excitement for this season as compared to your nervousness.
I was scheduled to go to Champaign. I was going to be with the Hail Varsity team there. We had a family emergency, and so I had to. I'm back home in Oklahoma right now, actually power washing the driveway of my father-in-law. So I will. I'll be here for the next couple weeks, and I won't be in Illinois, but I'll be watching the game.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Derek. But as we look ahead to this 8 days from now, is it excitement? Is that what you're feeling? I mean, just so many questions about this Husker football team, so much drama with the NCAA investigation. It just feels to me like I'm ready for this season to get underway, kind of get all the other crap out of the way and just play football.
Yeah. I don't know if I would necessarily call it excitement. I think there's just a lot of anticipation to see sort of what this looks like because, with all of the extra stuff that's happened, we as we get closer to the season, it really reaches a point where you sit and think, this has to be it for Frost. They need a good season because if not, questions are going to start getting a little louder. So, with everything going on, with all of the distractions, obviously the NCAA investigation, and then all of the hubbub that happened with Oklahoma earlier in the summer and all that other stuff, I just think Nebraska needs this season to be a good one on a number of fronts. And so, for me, I think I have a pretty good idea of what the defense is going to look like. I have some optimism about what the offense is going to look like, but I don't really have any sense of certainty about that optimism. They could, be an average offense. They could have a really, really talented offense. They could struggle again if, the mental mistakes continue to be a thing because, as we've seen throughout this offseason, mental mistakes continue to be a thing. So I think for me, maybe not excitement, but definitely a lot of anticipation about what is potentially coming with this season. There's going to be a lot of big opportunities for Nebraska to have statement performances, potentially statement wins. And I think with Wisconsin still a little iffy. I have questions with Wisconsin. I don't think Northwestern is going to be. I think they're going to take a step back. And then you talk about, I think Iowa will be pretty good, but it seems like the Big Ten West is pretty wide open. So if Nebraska is going to be pretty effective on offense and be more explosive than they've been in the past, and they've got some chance to. They have a chance to make some noise. And so I think there's just a lot of, I use the word again, anticipation on my part to kind of get this thing started and stop talking about hypotheticals and start seeing what it actually looks like on Saturdays.
Derek, the looming cloud over the team this week has been the NCAA investigation, and we'll get to that in a second. But with kickoff 8 days away, as I said, do you think that this distraction, it just came at a bad time? I mean, a lot has been made of how important this game is for Nebraska to get off on the right foot and to get a win against Illinois. Scott Frost said in his radio appearance this week that he didn't think that the team was really all that affected by this. Do you believe that? And do you think that it is important for Nebraska to put these distractions to the side and put full focus on Illinois?
I don't think this is something that would necessarily distract a team, because it deals with an improper use of an analyst and potentially some other stuff that would be decisions made above the heads of players. It's not like a situation where like a player did something they weren't supposed to do, or people were getting impermissible benefits or whatever. It's not a situation like that. So I don't necessarily think that it'll even register for the players. I mean, I had Adrian Martinez on my podcast, or I think it was Jojo Doman a couple weeks ago, right as Trev Alberts was introduced. And one of the questions that I had always wondered was like, what is a player's interaction with an athletic director? because I think most of us would think like, oh, this person sees the athletic director because he's the boss and he's around and there's going to be interactions. And JoJo said basically that he doesn't really ever see the athletic director. I think, with some of the more administrative things associated with the game, players are pretty well insulated from that. They're college students that have a college schedule and that have a football schedule. So those are pretty much the two things that consume the most of their time. If it's going to be a distraction for anyone, it'd probably be the coaching staff. So I guess we'll see. I don't think it'll be too big a distraction. I'm curious what happens as it relates to Frost. But, you talk about, like, will it impact Saturdays? Will it impact play calling? I don't know. I don't think so. We'll see how quickly the investigation moves and what comes of it and what more, if there's anything else that comes out. Obviously, stuff can change, but I don't think this really moves the needle too much into the red for like specific players on the team. They got enough stuff on their plate to worry about. I don't think that this really registers for them.
Well,
I could be wrong, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Derek, you talked about the distraction it could be for the coaching staff. Well, what did you take away from when Scott Frost met with the media on Wednesday? I mean, the arms crossed, body language was pretty evident. And then you had Trev Alberts really not able to say that much. But what was your takeaway from their meeting with the media?
It was interesting. I don't want to make too much of body language just because, like, if I put myself in Frost's shoes and I'm, like, in trouble, I'm not going to want to go stand up there and answer questions that I know I'm not allowed to answer, or get asked questions that I know I'm not allowed to answer because, like, Trev was right. Like, there's not a ton that they can say during an open investigation if they're complying with the NCAA and doing all the things they need to be doing. There's just not a ton that they can say right now. And so to have to stand up there after practice when you're 8 days away from the season, like, I can understand Frost's frustration. Now, that doesn't excuse rule breaking. If there was rule breaking, don't break the rules. But I can understand frustration, and so that was really what I took from the body language conversations. It can be a little overblown at times, but I think we'll see. I mean, no coach wants to have to deal with the NCAA looking into their program because, you have to be squeaky clean if the NCAA is looking into your program. So, I imagine it's a stressful time for Frost right now, and that was clearly on display.
Derek Peterson's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. You can find Derek on Twitter at Dr. PDHV. And Derek, I want to get back into the football talk because, again, kickoff 8 days away. It's getting into crunch time for this team. As Nebraska goes up against a first-year coach in Brett Bielema at Illinois, what do you think some of the keys to this game are going to be? I mean, Nebraska turned the ball over, I think, 3 times last season and 4 times the season before. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. But Illinois has gotten the ball in some plus territory against this Huskers team. So obviously taking care of the ball is going to be a big key for this Huskers team this week. But just when you look at it on paper, the Huskers should be the more talented team.
Yeah, they should be. For Nebraska in games like this season, it's really simple. Take care of the football and find a way on offense to generate some explosive plays. That's been, they've been, if you look at the numbers, and Brandon Vogel had a piece on this on HillVarsity.com when he previewed the offense. Like, if you look at them just purely objectively as an offense, what an offense tries to accomplish, so far they've done a pretty okay job at a lot of the stuff that an offense tries to accomplish. But they don't hang on to the football, and last year they couldn't generate explosive plays. And so Nebraska, from a talent perspective, is maybe the third most talented team in the West, second most talented team. I'm sure, some people with a glass of Kool-Aid in their hand could say the most talented team in the Big Ten West. So, when you're at that point, when you're facing a team like Illinois with a new head coach, when you're facing like the Northwesterns of the West, Purdue, we'll throw Purdue in that category, take care of your business, and you put yourself in a good position to win. So, and really that's been the talk all off season long from Nebraska offensively is we need to take care of the football, we need to limit the turnovers, and we need to find a way to create more explosive plays through the downfield passing game. If Adrian Martinez was super accurate this spring and into this fall, that's great. What does he look like when he throws the ball 35 yards downfield, and who is down there trying to make a catch on the ball, trying to make a play on the ball? Those will all be interesting things to watch just because it's the first game. And, because it's a Big Ten opponent, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be close, probably closer than people would want. It's not going to be comfortable. But if you take care of the football, which Nebraska hasn't done, and you generate explosive plays, which they've struggled to do, then you put yourself in a really good position to win. And so that's going to be, the thing that you look at whenever Nebraska plays these first few games on the schedule.
Derek, last thought here. We got about a minute left. What do you think is your storyline to watch as we enter the game week, essentially, for this Husker football team? There's still some question marks along the depth chart, but what's the number one thing that you're going to be looking for? Running back, wide receiver, the other cornerback spot? There's still some question marks along this team. So what are you looking for?
So I guess I've been out of pocket for the last couple of days. So has there been any resolution on the running back spot, or is that still up in the air?
Still up in the air.
So that's it right there. I mean, who's going to be the guy? Do they feel like they have a guy? Do they feel like they can go with the bell cow approach? Because most running backs you talk to, they want to be able to work themselves into the game. Dedrick Mills was that way. Divine Ozigbo was that way. They want to be able to, get into the rhythm of a game and work their way into it, not come in for 2 or 3 snaps, and then go back out. And, and Frost said in the spring he doesn't want to go by committee. If that running back position is still undecided, then that's the key storyline for me as we go into it.
There he is, Derek Peterson. You can find him on Twitter at DrPDHV. Derek, before we go, this is my interview. Chris not in the picture right now, so a quick question. Tottenham Hotspur beating Man City and then losing to a team that I've never heard of before. Sounds pretty Spursy, right?
You had to do it. It seemed to me, based on the lineup that Nuno played, that he did not care about the Europa Conference League, which doesn't bother me. I would not like to lose, even with like U16s or U17s or whatever the team was. But it seemed like he was like, we don't want to be here, so we don't really care about this. Let's focus on Premier League football, which I guess I'm fine with. They beat City, so I'm really happy.
I'm with you on that one. Derek, appreciate the time today. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks, man.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Winding through a Friday, it's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Weekend edition tomorrow morning, 7 to 9. Good stuff from Derek Peterson, Dr. Petey. Bill Doleman was money, and Parker Gabriel earlier. Elijah, Bill said don't do anything, don't knee-jerk, but let's get into this partnership. There's some more legs to it. The scope of the alliance here between the Big Ten, the ACC, the Pac-12 is uncertain. That per ESPN's report, according to 1AD. The initial conversations were going to be about all sports, but recent discussions have focused solely on football and men's and women's basketball, which I totally get. Those are your biggest moneymakers. Do we have a Paul Feinbaum crap balloon to drop on this? Not yet. Soon, Paul Feinbaum will shake his bony little finger at all 3 leagues because they are not the almighty SEC. He is laughing at this. This alliance serves as an opportunity for the Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren, who's been on the job less than 2 years. Jim Phillips, who should be the Big Ten Commissioner, is not. Who's now the ACC Commissioner, and then the new Pac-12 Commissioner, that's George Klakoff, who's from Vegas, baby. It's a chance for them to siphon some political clout, be a mover and shaker, get the spotlight on them. Make a nice impression. And above all, do what? That is get TV eyeballs. It's about getting a conglomeration of folks that will watch games. And what games are you going to watch? You're a Nebraska fan. You're going to watch whenever Nebraska's on, in person or on BTN, on ESPN, on Fox. You're going to check it out. But if you're a network, and specifically if you're a league and you're going to different networks to keep that flood of money, it's $55, $56, $60 million per team, like the Big Ten's chipping off every year, to Rutgers, to Nebraska, to Michigan, to Ohio State. You need some appetizing matchups. Elijah, you get that, bro, with a scheduling alliance to get Oregon and Ohio State to play. Oh, that's right. They are already this year. But I'd love to see Clemson, Ohio State. I mean, look at Georgia. They're opening up with Clemson. The bigger question here is Nebraska's got future games with Tennessee. They have future games with Oklahoma beyond next year. You want to be able to still play some teams in the SEC. Nebraska's done the ACC thing, Virginia Tech and Wake Forest, if you remember. They've done a lot of Pac-12 just because California is so vital. What's Paul Feinbaum think?
In the past, I'll just point you to last summer for a point of reference in alliances. Usually, in years past, the SEC's closest friend among conferences has been the ACC. I think in 2008, the ACC and the SEC tried to get the +1 enacted. It didn't work. As far as alliances, the SEC and the Big 12 have been close over the years. The Sugar Bowl tie-in between the Big 12 and the SEC, the Big 12 SEC basketball alliance. That's all over now. And what all these other leagues are saying is the SEC has left us behind. To me, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for proud conferences like the Pac-12. Well, let me scratch that. Like the Big Ten and the ACC to join with the Pac-12 and pretty well admit that we're having to combine forces to compete with the SEC. And I cannot wait for the explanation next week when these commissioners get together about why they left out the Big 12. That's where all this began. The SEC allegedly raided the Big 12, but these guys are not backing them up either.
Embarrassing it's been a day full of words. Embarrassing is not it. It's the reaction.
The move that's embarrassing was from the SEC. They kept that thing under the wraps. Listen, the SEC is going to go do what they do, right? They have a partner in ESPN, and they have a platform. They've got the network. They've got streaming. They have Disney. I mean, they've got it all, and they're going to go their route. They had to make a move to make more money for their teams because status quo still wasn't earning what the Big Ten's paying with the TV deal. Jim Delaney, thank the Lord, cut the TV deal off at 6 years. So the Big Ten's still going to be first to re-up. And if they can get in front through Barry Alvarez's help, and I know there's not a lot of there's some Barry Alvarez fans, but when it comes to strategy and schmoozing and knowing football, I want Barry in the room with Kevin Warren, okay? Business-wise. And if you're going to have a 9 or a 10 game schedule, Elijah, for the SEC, and it's going to be sweet matchup after sweet matchup because guess what? You're going to see Tennessee and Florida. You're going to get Georgia, Alabama. You're going to get the Pirate against LSU to open things up. That's all well and good, and you're going to get 2 or 3 heavyweights from the SEC down in the old Peach or Chick-fil-A Dome. And they're going to sound off against a Clemson or a Miami or somebody. I mean, they're always going to be that showcase neutral site game to kick off college football. There's no reason you can't do it if you're the ACC and you are now. I mean, Clemson's involved with it. But if you're the Pac-12 and the Big Ten or some of the other ACC teams, like in North Carolina, if they're good, right, or Virginia Tech, they've played in these games before.
But give me Oregon to open the year up against Ohio State. And if they rematch in the college football playoff, awesome.
Give me Nebraska, Colorado.
Please. And throw that son of a gun in Mile High.
Give me Nebraska, Miami. There's some fun matchups.
Give me that more often. How much blood was in the water in 2014 with the U coming in for a night game? It was awesome. It was awesome. It was an entertaining game. It was fun. Nebraska won. It'd be better if it was January, but you get my point. It was great, and there are some fun ball games that you can build in and still leave yourself a chance to play Oklahoma. And I know we're getting real heavy with schedule on top of your conference schedule, the way things are going. But that's what the Big Ten's been doing anyway. Nebraska's had Ohio State every year because that's going to sell to the TV, to the networks. They want to see the best teams against the best teams. You want to see the best games on a platform.
And the Big Ten, ACC, and Pac-12 are doing this in a way that doesn't ruin the integrity of college football.
No, they're not rating.
A 16-team super conference that was created under the table, keeping it secret from everyone. That's what's embarrassing here, Paul Feinbaum.
Nice take. I say this. Yeah, you're not going to go raid and break apart the Pac-12 and take their top 6 like we were talking about a month ago or 3 weeks ago.
You're doing it in a way that benefits everyone.
Right. You're keeping college football alive and well in all regions, not moving it all just to one region. That's crazy for it, and it's awesome. We'll wind down a Friday. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, a little dark out here in eastern Nebraska, capital city, but we'll survive it. So, Elijah, what is the agenda for this weekend? You're going to ice up before the big weekend of football, Big Ten, Week 0. Can't wait, man. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, I think it might be finally the time for me to try all those corn methods that we fielded.
You're just going to get a pot of boiling water and then just go after it.
Well, a pot of boiling water, A, with lemon juice, B, with some cream, some olive oil, some salt, some pepper. Like, I mean, I'm gonna try these methods and see what the best is.
I've been doing it wrong for years. I've been doing it wrong for years with my corn, either on the grill or in the pot. Thank God we had that corn show 3 weeks ago. And old Calvin Klein, friend of the firm, not that Calvin Klein, but old Calvin did the best I've ever had pork chop wise a couple weeks ago on his grill. And I always just like sear the heck out of it. I cook fast and hot. And I know that's not like super bright, but I don't want to always do the smoker. I'll do my grill. But throwing my pork chop on, bone in at about 3, my grill's it's hot. So it's going to keep creeping up towards, at a minimum, even if you got all the dials turned as low as you can go, it's still going to hit 400. So I was able to about 6.5 per side at about 375. And I did that a couple nights ago, and it was perfect.
Really?
And I've been very generous with the amount of Old Bay I use on my pork chop because it's just got that extra kick.
Well, hey, I mean,
should buy stock in Old Bay.
There's all these sodium warnings out there, but yeah, I'm with you on that. Sodium is one of the greatest joys in life.
Well, careful, my friend, says Mr. Kidney Stone surgery recipient twice. So be careful. But I pack all of my salt intake into pork chop night.
The problem is
if I use Old Bay, I won't use any salt. That's the deal I've made with the Almighty.
The salt addiction, I think it runs in the family. It's my
salt, and then there's the kosher salt. You just take a handful of and you throw it on. Oh, it's great.
See, like I come from a grandpa that salted everything. Like he'd go to the Italian restaurant and he'd salt his pizza and then salt his salad and and then salt.
I salt the salad.
Yeah, it makes it better. Exactly.
Oh, it's so good.
But apparently that's not a normal thing to do. No, yeah.
You don't put salt on ice cream, do you? You're not that guy? Have you ever tried
I like
that?
a salted caramel ice cream.
Oh, so do I. But I mean, there's an episode in Mad Men where the crazy grandpa's eating chocolate ice cream at night with his granddaughter, and it's really cool. It's sweet, but he has salt out and he's salting.
Doesn't sound that bad.
Well, you got to try that.
On a vanilla ice cream, probably not. On a chocolate ice cream, that could play. But like my dad loves some salt. I didn't realize like how much salt I was using on foods until I moved in with roommates that didn't have a salt addiction. And they're like, wow, that's salty. And I went, really? I thought it could use some more salt. Well,
Brett emails in Chris@HailVarsity.com and doing it wrong for years. That is what she said. Love you, Captain Corona. Thanks for that input. Well, have a great weekend.
Oh, wait. I've been waiting to use this.
That's what she said.
Oh, wait. It's not going to work out.
I got to go. All right. It's time to go have more salt and have a cocktail. And we'll talk to you tomorrow morning at 7 with Hail Varsity.